Jayanti.
Let this be a constant affirmation in our hearts, in our minds. Lord, I am thine, be thou mine. Nothing else matters. Om Shanti. So, as we discussed in the last one that we did last class, we finished the chapter at Encinitas, that chapter. The first edition of Master's autobiography of a yogi that came, it ended with that. And that's when autobiography was published in 1946. And we all know the story. In 1948, Swami Kriyananda, after dropping his mother at the port where she was to join his father into Egypt, where he was a geologist, I think, and he was passing by this bookstores, and saw this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And he says that he opened it, that face, that eyes attracted him so much. But he opened the eyes, and the first thing he read is dedicated to the American saint, Luther Burbank. And he says, nah, American saint, and he puts it back and goes away. But that night he's unable to sleep. Something keeps pulling him back. Next day he goes, picks up the book. He says, 3 days, 3 nights, I read that book back to back, and something transformed in him. And no, I think that whole night he read, and then he traveled 3 days and 3 nights all the way across from one end to the other end. 3 nights it took him, and reached California, where he met Master. And the first place he went is Encinitas, where he met Sister Gyan Mata, who thought that he was a plumber who has come to correct something. he thought, like, that I will enter, and Master will say, oh, you have come. Nothing like that happened. Master wasn't even there. And then he was sent to the Hollywood church, and when he was told Hollywood church, he said, Hollywood has a church also. I mean, who has a church in Hollywood? And that is where he met Master. And Master said, and then his life was transformed, right? Master said that I met you because others were waiting for months to meet Master, but he was given an appointment with him immediately. And he said, I met you because Divine Mother told me to. You have very good karma. And when Swamiji said that, this was life transforming for me, this book. And when I read, and he said, and Master said, yes, because it has my vibrations in it. So for us, this journey of last more than a year that we have been, what are we doing? Yes, we have been reading it. We have tried to understand. We have tried to tune into what he has told us or is trying to guide us. But more importantly, we all have tried to get that vibration of Master, tune into that vibration that Master is for all of us. And this is one book that we can all go back to again and again. It should be our bedside table book. Nayaswami Devi said that, this is one book, whenever she's in any doubt, any confusion, she randomly opens a page, reads it, and strangely, it has an answer to her question. So it is a kind of Bible for each one of us, or Bhagavad Gita for each one of us. It is the go-to book for each one of us. And I carry this book whenever I'm traveling or anywhere. This is my protection. This is my, talisman that I carry around. So, okay. So later on, Master added these chapters, one chapter rather, which was like till 1951. And we all know that in 1952, he passed away. So it's kind of, he takes us through this, some of the years here. So the first few pages are a repeat of the last chapter. So we will skip that. And then there are description about the last place that they had created, SRF Lake Shrine. Again, that's a lot of description on that. I think we can skip all that. We come to page number 479. So the last, that blessed is a man, that also was part of the last chapter. So I'm letting that go. So let us read this, the next two. Who will read? Preeti, do you want to read? Has Chandrika also signed in? Chandrika. Okay, let Chandrika read this. She was the first one to say. So let Chandrika read a couple of paragraphs, and then.
Line you are saying, is it like mid of a chapter, or a chapter is starting from?
Middle of the chapter. That's right.
Starting with the blessed is the man whom.
The blessed is the man wo chhod ke uska next. So who is reading it first? Chandrika is reading. Okay.
Can I go second, because I have a different copy and I'm not able to find the part at which we are just yet. So
Can-
I'll look for it till then. Yes.
Great Masters of India se leke.
Um,
The second
this
pack. I hope all of us have the same edition.
I have the different one. And yes. But the last chapter in this book, chapter 49, starts with the years 1940 to 1951.
Right. But we are, some of it is part of the previous
Yeah.
chapter. We are skipping all that. And we come to the great masters of India who have shown keen interest in the West.
Okay.
So,
The great masters of India who have shown keen interest in the West have well understood modern conditions. They know that until there is better assimilation in all nations of the distinctive Eastern and Western virtues, world affairs cannot improve. Each hemisphere needs the best offerings of the other. In the course of world travel, I have sadly observed much suffering. In the Orient, suffering chiefly on the material plane; in the Occident, misery chiefly on the mental or the spiritual plane. All nations feel the painful effects of unbalanced civilizations. India and many other Eastern lands can greatly benefit from emulation of the practical grasp of affairs, the material efficiency of Western nations like America. The Occidental peoples, on the other hand, require a deeper understanding of the spiritual basis of life, and particularly of scientific techniques that India accidentally developed for man's conscious communion with God. The ideal of a well-rounded civilization is not a chimerical one. For millenniums, India was a land of both spiritual light and widespread material prosperity. The poverty of the last 200 years is, in India's long history, only a passing karmic phase. A byword in the world, century after century, was the riches of the indices. Abundance, material as well as spiritual, is a structural expression of cosmic law or natural righteousness. There is no parsimony in the divine, nor in its goddess or phenomena, exuberant nature. The Hindu scriptures that man is attracted to this.
just teach.
Particular earth to learn more completely in each successive life the infinite ways in which the spirit may be expressed throughout and dominant over material conditions.
So let us, this time we will discuss and then keep moving forward. Okay. So here he says that the great masters of India who have shown, so throughout this book, we have read Babaji, right? It starts with Babaji and how Babaji and Jesus Christ said that, Kriya Yoga is what is needed, and that both the West and the East have to come together. We are in this ascending Dwapara Yoga, and that is the need of the hour. And this is the only way. Kriya Yoga is the one that is going to help do that. And so they are saying that it is very important. Master also explains that in the Orient, which is the eastern side, suffering chiefly on the material plane. So it's lacking. What is lacking is the material prosperity, right? And in the Occident is what he says, the America and the Western world, it's the spiritual poverty, right? It's very materialistic. They have progress there, but then at the end, that is missing there. And that is why he says that they both have to come together. And that is what these masters are constantly, talking about, striving. That is the need of the hour. We can't, it has to be balanced, is what Master is saying, that in the course of world travel, I have sadly observed much suffering. And this is what he talks about. And he says that the nations are in a painful grip of unbalanced civilization. So Eastern is poverty, material poverty. Occidental peoples, on the other, require a deeper understanding of the spiritual basis of life. They have achieved that, the material success, but then, that is again disbalanced. So they need to come back to that spiritual roots. And he talks about India. There was still all these invasions started happening last 200 years. Was that is the reason they were invading India, because it was rich, and at the same time there was a lot of spiritual prosperity also. The Vedas and all these, the yoga, everything has generated. I mean, there are other religions also that came out of India, the Buddhism, the Sikhism, the Sikhism, it came because of the invasions, but Jainism. So this is the cradle of spiritual knowledge, and yet they were so materially also so rich. He says that for millenniums, India was a land both of spiritual light and of widespread material prosperity. And we went down, but he says that India has that karmic. It had gone down, but it has that karmic thing that it will bounce back because of the richness of the saints that came. I mean, that is what is preserving India's India as such, because of these are the spiritual warriors, the vibration that is there on this land. That is why it will never be gone. That it will never be. Whereas in other civilizations, ancient civilizations like Egypt and all, were prosperous. They were doing very well, but then they went off, right? They were taken over or they're lost. But India continued despite all these invasions. They have continued. So, and he says that the Hindu scriptures teach that man is attracted to this particular earth to learn more completely in each successive life. The infinite. Why people keep reincarnating? It's because it's our karma. There are certain unlearned lessons, so we keep coming back, and we are attracted. Why we incarnate? Because we can't. I mean, all of us understand that Earth cannot be the only planet that is inhabited, right? We come here, those who are attracted to this particular earth to learn is the infinite ways in which the spirit can be expressed through all material conditions ever dominant over them. So this is all we need to come. We are coming here to bring. There has to be a spiritual reason and the material success. We have to bring these together, and that is what we need to learn. Till then we will keep incarnating, because either the person in one lifetime learned that, oh, you need money, so they went after that, but they lost on the moral things, the spirituality. So they have to reincarnate till one is able to understand that there has to be a balance between the two, right? Okay. So who is reading next? Preeti?
Yes. East and West are learning this great truth in different ways and should gladly share with each other their discoveries. Beyond all doubt, it is pleasing to the Lord when his earth children struggle to attain a world civilization free from poverty, disease, and soul ignorance. Man's ignorance of his soul resources, the result of his misuse of free will, is the root cause of all other forms of suffering. The ills attributed to an anthropomorphic abstraction called society may be laid more realistically at the door of every man. Utopia must spring in the private bosom before it can flower in civic virtue, inner reforms leading naturally to outer ones. A man who has reformed himself will reform thousands. The time tested scriptures of the word are one in essence, inspiring man on his upward journey. One of the happiest periods of my life was spent at Encinitas in dictating to secretaries the text of a spiritual interpretation of Christ's life. Fervently, I implored Christ to guide me in divining the true meaning of his words, many of which have been grievously misunderstood for 20 centuries. One night, while I was engaged in silent prayer, my sitting room in the Encinitas Hermitage became filled with an opal blue light. I beheld the radiant form of the blessed Lord Jesus. A young man, he seemed of about 25, with a sparse beard and mustache. His long black hair, parted in the middle, was haloed by a shimmering gold. His eyes were eternally wondrous as I gazed. They were infinitely changing. With each divine transition in their expression, I intuitively understood the wisdom that was being conveyed. In his glorious eyes, I felt the power that upholds the myriad words. A holy grail appeared at his mouth. It came down to my lips and then returned to Jesus. After a few moments, he spoke to me in beautiful words of reassurance, so personal in their nature that I keep them in my heart.
Thank you. So let us discuss this before we move forward. So here he's talking about why do people suffer? What is, I mean, the suffering that is there in this world? Poverty, disease, and soul ignorance. He says man's ignorance of his soul resources, the result of his misuse of free will, is the root cause of all other forms of suffering. Master says that, God, when he created the souls, he also gave us the free will. So the God, masters, the guru, God, they don't impose themselves on us. They have given us the free will. What is a free will? To choose God or to reject God. And they wait. Master wait. God waits till we turn back. It can take lifetimes, millions of lifetimes till we turn back. So what is the cause of, what are the suffering, the poverty, diseases? Why do we suffer? I mean, if God, everyone is same for God, if we are all God's children, then why is one person suffering and another is not? Master said it's because of our own karmic. We are the cause. And so we have to learn the lessons. Where we put out that energy until we understand what we did, we learn the lesson, we will keep doing things, right? And because this is a law, this is a universal law. God is not going to change it for anyone. So physical suffering. So Master says in his book in his Divine Will Healing, he says that the nature of man is triune. One is physical, mental, and spiritual. But he says that physical suffering and mental suffering, the root cause is because of spiritual ignorance, that we forget who we are, the joy that we are, that the soul is a spark of the divine. We forget that, and so we use that free will to reject God. So we kind of close the windows. There are three windows through which the ray of God is coming. We close the windows. So, and we have to open it. We have to open it. So the root cause of all suffering is soul ignorance. Okay. And here he says that, again, he says, when we say society, this problem with the society, that problem, and we want to go and change the society, this is not right, that is not, he says, utopia must spring in the private bosom before it can flower in civic virtue. I cannot be responsible, how can I change others? The first thing that all of us need to do is change ourselves, transform ourselves. Each one of us is responsible for ourselves. The moment that happens, inner reforms leading naturally to outer ones. Each one of us makes that effort. The circumstances will change. The whole problem with people is that we want others to change. They are behaving like this, they are doing this. We forget what we are up to. So the first thing is, change yourself, transform yourself. That is our only responsibility. That is the only thing that we can have any control over. And the rest of the things will automatically follow if each man is able to do that. When I say man, it is not like, man, only man, woman, all of them, right? So he says a man who has reformed himself will reform thousands. He has a magnetism to reform others. Others will follow him. There is something to look forward to. Why so many follow Paramahansa Yogananda? Because he has mastered himself. And, is something to emulate for the rest of us. Okay, so he talks about, he says that fervently, when he was writing on a spiritual interpretation of Christ's life, he says, I implored Christ to guide me in divining the true meaning of his words. So what does that mean? He means that he tuned into the consciousness of Christ to guide what he is writing. Master said that when he wrote the interpretation, he says it is not an interpretation actually of Bhagavad Gita. He called it God Talks to Arjuna. He says, why he says it is not an interpretation, it is because he says, I tuned into the consciousness of Ved Vyas. So what flows through me is what Ved Vyas meant when he was writing that, right? So, so it is not somebody's interpretation here. It is like direct download of Ved Vyasa's consciousness in this and that group. So that is the difference between, because we have so many interpretations, so many books of interpretations of Bhagavad Gita, but what Master wrote is not interpretation, right? So that is very important to understand. Okay, and here next he says that he says there was an opal blue light. Again, that light, if you remember, I mean, if we all see the avatars, Krishna, Ram, they all have, they say that it's a blue color, right? They are blue color. So that is what is these avatars. The opal blue light is that, it's a divine light, okay? So, and he says, a young man, he seemed to be about 25 years. When Lahiri Mahashaya met Babaji for the first time, he said the same thing, that he seemed to be a young man of around 25 years. And he goes on to describe Jesus Christ. And he says, his eyes were eternally wondrous. Somewhere else also, Master, when he was talking about one of the saints, he said, he looked, Giribala. He again mentioned her eyes, right? When he also met Saint Teresa, I think, again, he spoke about eyes. He spoke about her eyes for Ananda Mohima. He is constantly, we are told that, eyes are the windows to the soul. So, and when, it's the master or a self-realized, a divine person, their eyes hold the magnetism of the divine itself, right? So he says, his eyes were eternally wondrous as I gazed. They were infinitely changing. With each divine transition in their expression, infinitely changing. Okay, with each divine transition in their expression, he says, I intuitively understood the wisdom that was being conveyed just by that expression in that eyes, just by looking into their eyes. So this is one takeaway. I mean, we have done it multiple times in the center also. Keep a picture of Master in front of you when you are about to meditate. Look into his eyes for some time. Tune into those eyes. Just gaze into those eyes. I mean, it's not just a picture, right? It's not, Masters, when we have a picture, it's a living form, actually. So it's not just a picture. So try it, gaze into those eyes. And then when you close your eyes, bring the eyes of Master at your spiritual eye and try to meditate. Tune into Master's consciousness. What is he trying to tell us? He is constantly trying to tell us things. We don't tune in. We don't, because, our mind is so occupied with various thoughts. So make this, one of your practices during some of your meditations, and see the difference. Those meditations are, I tell you, beautiful. When you look into Master's eyes and then, close your eyes and sit and meditate. Those meditations are beautiful. So, and that is why Master also told us that, be careful looking into people's eyes, because there are people, especially, people who are kind of negative, or people who have evil tendencies, or they are negative towards us. He said, be careful because For a master, they can be in everybody's company, nothing affects, because their magnetism is like, it's infinite. But for us who are, taking tender steps, baby steps on the yogic path, we need to protect ourselves. And one of them is not looking into the eyes of people who, not all the people, just randomly, looking into eyes can, because that it drains our magnetism, right? Or we can attract those qualities in us. What is the quality that we want to imbibe is very important. So staring into the eyes of our masters, go for it, and imbibe those qualities that each master represents. And he says that I felt the power that upholds the myriad worlds, a holy grail. What is a holy grail? It's a dish, it's a cup, or kind of a stone thing, which has miraculous powers. So he says that a holy grail appeared at his mouth. It came down to my lips and then returned to Jesus. When he tuned into Jesus Christ, when he looked into his eyes, he understood a lot of things that were being conveyed, and then a power, miraculous power that came from Jesus and then went back, came to master and then went back. That is what a master can do when we tune into them, right? So, and he says, after a few moments, he spoke to me in beautiful words of reassurance, so personal in their nature that I keep them in my heart. So he's not telling us what exactly did Jesus Christ tell him. So next page, who will read? Yeah, Kavita. Yeah.
I spent much time in 1950 and 1951 at a tranquil retreat near the Mojave Desert in California. There, I translated the Bhagavad Gita and wrote a detailed commentary that presents the various paths of yoga. Twice referring explicitly to a yogic technique, the only one mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita and the same one that Babaji named simply Kriya Yoga, India's greatest scripture has thus offered practical as well as moral teaching. In the ocean of our dream world, the breath is the specific storm of delusion that produces the consciousness of individual waves, the forms of men and of all other material objects. Knowing that mere philosophical and ethical knowledge is insufficient to rouse man from his painful dream of separate existence, Lord Krishna pointed out the holy science by which the yogi may master his body and convert it at will into pure energy. The possibility of this yogic feat is not beyond the theoretical comprehension of modern scientists, pioneers in an atomic age. All matter has been proved to be reducible to energy. The Hindu scriptures extol the yogic science because it is employable by mankind in general. The mystery of breath, it is true, has occasionally been solved without the use of formal yoga techniques, as in the case of non-Hindu mystics who possessed transcendental powers of devotion to the Lord. Such Christian, Muslim, and other saints have indeed been observed in the breathless and motionless trance, Sabikalpa Samadhi, without which no man has entered the first stages of God perception. After a saint has reached Nirbikalpa or the higher Samadhi, however, he is irrevocably established in the Lord, whether he be breathless or breathing, motionless or active.
So here he talks about where that the one I was talking about, God talks with Arjuna, and they went to this that desert retreat of master. He had taken Swami Kriyananda also with him in that, some other monks, and so some of these monks were taken along with master. And master had given him the task. If we read, we will be reading the new path later, where he says that, edit my Bhagavad Gita, but don't change a word. So Swamiji was wondering, what do you mean? What does he mean? Edit Bhagavad Gita, but he says, don't change a word. What would it mean? For a long time, he said, I meditated on it. And how can I edit without, altering anything? Later on, he said, he understood that. He said, don't change the meaning, in trying to be grammatically right, you change words and all, but don't change the essence of what I have tried to put there. That is what he meant. So, again, as I had just mentioned that, he tuned into Ved Vyas and wrote the God Talks to Arjuna. And here he says, twice referring explicitly the yogic technique, the Bhagavad Gita, even Patanjali had mentioned the Kriya Yoga, right? He says, India's greatest scripture, Bhagavad Gita, has thus offered practical as well as moral teaching. So it is moral teaching, yet, in our everyday life, we can, use the teachings. There's so much. So it is not something that is like, okay, in Dwapara Yoga, Krishna gave it to Arjuna. No, even today it is applicable, and not just in a war, but every aspect of our life. How to lead our life in a householder life, it has an answer. For the kids, it has answer. For management lessons, these days we have so many management gurus who are giving, who doing workshops on what Bhagavad Gita has to say for a management person. So it is applicable in every aspect of our life. It's very practical lessons. Okay. And he says, in the ocean of our dream world, the breath is a specific storm of delusion that produces the consciousness of individual waves, the forms of men and of other material objects. As Master said, or as the Indian scriptures say, that the spirit is this pure, vibrationless consciousness, right? And it is like, it is compared to that of a deep, deep ocean, which is not moving. And then the storm of Maya is what Master says. That is what is the breath. The storm of Maya creates waves. And then each one feels, it's like, has the perception, illusion of being different. The wave is part of the ocean, yet each wave thinks that, I'm different. So it's like the gas, the burner, that gas is the same. Underneath, it's all same, but it comes out from different, there are various holes, it's coming out through various, and each one seems different, but we are all the same, right? So breath is what creates that. Master said that breath is what it binds the soul to the body, right? As long as we are conscious of this, we are conscious of the body and our separateness from each one of the other creation, part of the other creation, right? So he says that the ocean of, let's read it again. Ocean of our dream world, the breath is a specific storm of delusion. Storm of delusion is Maya, the storm of Maya, that it produces the consciousness of individual waves, that forms of men and all other material objects that, we think is all separate. Each one is separate from the other. Knowing the mere philosophical and ethical knowledge is insufficient, he says. There's no point going through talking about it as philosophy. There's nothing philosophy. What the Indian saints, the sages gave is like, practical, scientific, effective technique. So it is not just philosophy, and just talking about it. So Lord Krishna pointed out the holy science by which a yogi may master his body and convert it at will into pure energy. Right? Only in this 20th century, the scientists realized, when Einstein gave the formula E is equal to mc square, right? The ancient rishis know it, that we are nothing. It's just this, or matter is just energy. All of us, I have read it. Okay, Master says everything is just energy. Einstein says everything, matter is just energy. But we don't realize it. For us, we are still so body bound. So we feel that this is different and that is different. So all those people who are there on the screen are different, because we have not yet realized that I'm only energy. But Master is bringing us to that state. That is why, the first class we enter, we are taught energization exercises to tune into energy, to tune into ourselves as energy. And then, then get the mind to interiorize and start concentrating on God. So And this is, and he says that, the scientists have also realized, as I said, in the 20th century, Einstein said, and then now they have started working on that. Everything is, no, but they have understood that matter is energy on a very superficial level, and they are using it for that, because now the planet, consciousness of the planet has entered the Dwapara Yuga, the age of energy. So people are becoming conscious. The more we enter another, 500 years down the line, people will start working with that. People will start understanding that, yes, we are all energy. Now, right now, we are only superficially touching upon it, right? Okay, here he says, the mystery of breath, it is true, has occasionally been solved without the use of formal yoga techniques, as in the case of non-Hindu mystics who possess transcendent powers of devotion to the. So he says, there are Christian, Muslim, and other saints who had no knowledge of, in those medieval times and all, who had no knowledge of yoga, but still through their devotion, they tune into this. What yoga means, they tune without knowing what is yoga. What is yoga, we all know, is to the union of this little self with God, or, so the integration of all, the entire thing. So they got it through devotion without realizing that that is what is the purpose. So it is like Master says that Saint Teresa of Avila, she, when she was, in so much of devotion, she would, she said she couldn't even pray. She would reach a state where she would completely go inwards, and she couldn't even pray and in the church. I mean, they didn't know that that is all the purpose, that when we are doing bhakti yoga or karma yoga or jnana yoga, the whole purpose is to reach that state that you realize that it is not I who am doing it. You have to go to a state where, bhakti, rather than being a very outward form of devotion, it has to be interior, where you bring that energy of the heart chakra and offer it at the spiritual lines, completely going inward and just surrendering at the feet of the divine. Doing karma yoga, you think, you realize that, it's not I who am doing. Who am I to do? God is the doer. So, again, it come to a state where it's not very activity bound. You come to a state where it's completely, you are in tune with God. When Jnana Yoga, it is like, as Master said, neti, where the Jnana Yogi, otherwise it will become all, as Swamiji, I was listening to his talk. If that Jnana Yogi doesn't come to that state of, inwardness and tune into that God consciousness and intuitively come to that state, it will be a armchair philosophy. So he has to come to that state where he realizes this, you cannot understand intellectually anything. It has to be, inward. So these people also, he says, those saints of other religions, without knowing what is the purpose of yoga, what is yoga, how to do it, they achieved it through their devotion. And they went into that breathless, motionless trance. And as I let me just finish what Saint Teresa of Avila, she said that, she would even levitate and she would hold on to her chair, and she couldn't pray outward prayer. She just couldn't do it when she was in that state. It will be so inward. And then, she would force herself to do the prayers. Otherwise, everybody else is watching and they'll say, oh, she's not praying. And also Swamiji was saying that she said that, the soul is here. He said she experienced it. What she was saying is from her experience. And she also experienced Jesus Christ as a formless Jesus Christ. And they were like, what is she talking? Because they couldn't understand what she was saying. And later on, some of the, others went into old scriptures and realized that it is mentioned in one of those scripture that the highest state to experience Jesus Christ is in this formless state. So these saints, in their own way, realize that without even knowing what is yoga. So it is possible, and that is the only way. That is the only way to find God. So, and he says that they have to, Savikalp Samadhi is a breathless, again, when we start trying to meditate, what keeps us in, the mind is in constant flux. is the thoughts. And that's the first thing we are taught when we are taught the Hong Saw technique, is when by watching the breath, we try to bring the mind, to a state of stillness. Breath is what, breath, mind and heart, they are interconnected, but we cannot control the mind, we cannot control the heart. If I were to say, okay, I'm not going to think thoughts, it's never going to happen. Or if I say the heart should not be palpitating so much, it is not going to listen to me. But the moment I start watching this outward agency, this breath that keeps coming and going of its own accord, I just watch it, it starts slowing down, right? And the more we do that, and Master has given us the mantra, the Hong Saw mantra, and the more we do that, we come to a state where the yogi, he says, comes to a state of complete stillness, where it's almost breathless. It's not holding the breath. There is no need to breathe. And that is, he says, or the motionless trance is what he calls as Savikalp Samadhi, where you are conscious of the body, you're still here, you are here, and you're trying to tune into God. So that state is a Savikalp Samadhi. And then he says, after a saint has reached Nirvikalp Samadhi, which is the highest Samadhi, where the meditator and what the process of meditation and what he is meditating on, all three merge into one. He becomes one with that, the cosmic consciousness. So he says, and that is a Nirvikalp. There is no Vikalp. Vikalp nahi hai, Nirvikalp, hai na? He is irrevocably established in Lord. So this first Savikalp Samadhi, where he reaches that state, and then he comes back into your regular. Once the meditation is over, he's back to being who he is. He's still very much aware of his ego, right? He's still the ego. Whereas the saint who has achieved Nirvikalp Samadhi, even when he is doing regular work, he's still always constantly in tune with God. Right? That is, and Master said that in this lifetime, try to reach the Nirvikalp Samadhi. Once we reach the Nirvikalp Samadhi, you become Jivan Mukta. You don't have to come back to this planet to finish off your karma. Then we go off to Hiranyaloka, where Sri Yukteswar will be waiting for us to work with the other aspects, so that we can move off further and we merge. So it's not, the work is not done yet. Once you have the Nirvikalp Samadhi, we stop, you don't have to come back to the earth, but the work is not done. It's a long way to God, to merge back in God. Our gurus, they are avatars. So they have been here, they have gone through all these struggles, and they have achieved Nirvikalp and even gone beyond that, and they have merged back in God. And so that is why there is so much of compassion, because they know, they have been here. So they don't judge us. At no point do they judge us. So we judge ourselves. It's us who are judging each one of. We are our worst judges, our own and others also. So that is why, the other day there was this satsang by Swami Krishna, Naya Swami Krishna Das, who had come here. So he was talking about some near-death experience that he had, and he said, he went into a tunnel that was, that was a light at the end of the tunnel, and he said, I was, feeling guilty about all the things that I had done. And he said, the light, there was this transmission of what the light was saying. I mean, we don't know how the light would communicate with us, but there was this transmission of communication. And the light said, but you were never judged. You were never judged. God doesn't judge us. Our masters never judge us. We ourselves are judging ourselves. That is why once one of the monks, he had left the path, and he had become very old. He was dying, or he was still on the path. I don't know, but he was, leaving the body. Swamiji was with him, Swami Kriyananda. And that man was feeling he had left the path, I think. And he was regretting when he was leaving the body. Oh, I left the path, I left my guru. And Swamiji came back, and Swamiji and other monks came back and told Master that, he was regretting, he was feeling very bad. Master said he shouldn't have done that. because that is what will keep bringing us. Master said desires and regrets is what will keep bringing us back. The thoughts we go out with is what will keep bringing us back, and we are continuously caught in this whole drama of life and death. So that is why practicing the presence, because how will I suddenly at the time of leaving body remember that I have to only remember my guru and God, unless I have been practicing it in every aspect of my life, every moment of my life. It becomes natural that at that time also I will think of God. I will think of God and gurus. So that is why Lahiri Masha said, remember God during the summer of your life. How will you remember otherwise, in the winter of your life? I'm not saying the exact quote, but this is important that we keep practicing the presence of God. And should we read? Yeah, there is still 10 minutes left. Pala, do you want to read? Is Pala there?
Yeah, I'm here, but I don't have that particular chapter. So, yeah.
Sonal, do you want to read?
Is this the book?
Yeah, but there is a little bit of differences.
I have, sorry,
What page is it?
I'm not very well, so I would love to read it.
Should I read, or Chandrika, do you want to read the Brother Lawrence?
Read again, yes.
Yeah.
Hello. Brother Lawrence, the 17th century Christian mystic, tells us his first glimpse of God realization came about by viewing a tree. Nearly all human beings have seen a tree. Few, alas, have thereby seen the tree's creator. Most men are utterly incapable of summoning those irresistible powers of devotion that are effortlessly possessed only by a few ekantins, single-hearted saints found in all religious paths, whether of east or west. Yet the ordinary man is not therefore shut out from the possibility of divine communion. He needs, for soul recollection, no more than the Kriya Yoga technique, a daily observance of the moral precepts, and an ability to cry sincerely, Lord, I yearn to know thee. The universal appeal of yoga is thus its approach to God through a daily usable scientific method, rather than through a devotional fervor that, for the average man, is beyond his emotional scope. Various great Jain teachers of India have been called Tirthankars, ford makers, because they reveal the past by which bewildered humanity may cross over and beyond the stormy seas of samsara, the karmic wheel, the recurrence of lives and deaths. Samsara, literally a flowing with, the phenomenal flux, induces man to take the line of least resistance. Whosoever, therefore, will be a friend of the world is the enemy of God. To become the friend of God, man must overcome the devils or evils of his own karma or actions that even urge him to spineless acquiescence in the Mayic delusions of the world. A knowledge of the iron law of karma encourages the earnest seeker to find the way of final escape from its bonds. Because the karmic slavery of human beings is rooted in the desires of Maya, darkened minds, it is with mind control that the yogi concerns himself. The various cloaks of karmic ignorance are laid away, and man views himself in his native essence. The mystery of life and death, whose solution is the only purpose of man's sojourn on earth, is intimately interwoven with breath. Breathlessness is deathlessness. Realizing this truth, the ancient rishis of India seized on the sole clue of the breath and developed a precise and rational science of breathlessness. Had India no other gift for the world, Kriya Yoga alone would suffice as a kingly offering.
So we were discussing about practicing the presence of God. The next line, the paragraph is about Brother Lawrence. There is this very small booklet of Brother Lawrence. I think he was in the 17th century, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, 17th century. And about, practicing the presence of God. So he was practicing. He said, like if he's trying to eat food, it will be like, it's God's hand that is bringing the food to my mouth. And, if he's using the typewriter, so it's like, God's hand is moving his hand. And he said, it was difficult initially. It was difficult to remember to do this. But once he started doing this, everything became easy. It's a very small booklet, very interesting, practicing the presence of God. So, and he mastered it, where, he came to a stage where initially he was imagining, right, that, this God's hand that is moving. If I'm walking, it's, God is walking through me. But he mastered it where it actually started happening for him. So that is that is our aim. That is where we want to be, where, from imagination state, where it actually starts happening, that when I'm moving my hand, it's God who's moving my hand. We all want to reach there. So, and he says that tells us his first glimpse of God realization came by viewing a tree, just viewing a tree. And that's what Master says, that we see a tree every day, right? We don't get self-realized. We don't get into a state of samadhi. In fact, very interesting that, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, when he was, a young boy, he looked up in the sky and he saw, few swans flying, and he went into a state of ecstasy. We see birds flying all the time. We don't see, we don't get that. For them, even that is like connecting with God, with the divine. Oh my goodness, that kind. And then they go into ecstasy. And similarly, Brother Lawrence, just viewing a tree, he went into ecstasy. Nearly all, that's what he says, that nearly all human beings have seen a tree. Few, alas, have thereby seen the tree's creator. They went beyond the just form of tree. He went beyond that form of tree to see the what was behind it. What is behind each one of us. When Ramakrishna Paramahansa saw those swans flying, he went beyond that. What made it happening? What is it? So we all want to reach there again. And he says that most of us are utterly incapable of summoning those irresistible powers of devotion. That is the power of devotion. That's what he says, that, even these non-Hindu saints were able to achieve yoga despite not knowing what yoga is all about, just by the power of devotion. That is what devotion can do. Irresistible power of devotion that are effortlessly possessed only by a few ekanta, single-hearted. As Master said that, the way path to man's heart is very narrow. You can't exist with many things there. So it has to be single-hearted devotion to God. And, if we come, that is why when we read about, when we read in the Mahabharata also, when in the last, where, just they were trying to put off the war, and Krishna comes and talks to Duryodhan. Duryodhan is, Master called him King Material Desire. And he said that, just give them 5 villages. If, they don't need the kingdom, nothing, just 5 villages. And he said, what does he say? I can't even give a piece of land that can stand on the tip of a pin. Even that I will not give. That is what our material desires can do. That is why. So we can't say that, okay, it's okay to have this desire also, and I desire God also. It is never going to happen. That is why Duryodhan and his team had to be destroyed, because they can't exist together. So it has to be a single-hearted devotion to God. So such ekantins, he says, saints, found in all religious paths, whether east or west. Yet, he says, the ordinary man is not therefore shut out from the possibility of divine communion. So, okay, we are not yet there. We don't have that kind of, I want only thee, Lord. We are not yet there, But he says, he needs, the ordinary man, there is some scope for us. He says he needs for divine recollection, to remember who we are, for the smriti, no more than Kriya Yoga techniques. A daily observance of the moral precepts, which is Yama and Niyama. and an ability to cry sincerely, Lord, I yearn to know thee. So for us, he says, for us, the normal man, we are not yet there. These three things are what is, the three things that are needed. Kriya Yoga technique, a daily observance of moral precepts, all the yamas, all the niyamas, in every aspect of our life, in our daily life, how we deal with the people, how we deal with the situations, what are we thinking, what are our thoughts, what is that root that is doing introspection. So constant, it has to be a constant effort. So it is not like, okay, I did in level 2, I did yama, I took truthfulness and done, ho gaya. No, we have to keep doing it. So these three things, if we hold on to, Kriya Yoga techniques that our Guru has given, practicing, the yama and niyama in every aspect of our life, and an ability to cry, Lord, I yearn to know thee. I want, just love God, just wanting to love God. These three, it will help us to have that. There's a possibility, he says, of divine communion. So these three are important things for us who aren't ekantins yet. And he says that universal appeal of yoga is thus its approach to God through daily usable scientific method. So this is a scientific. What is science? Why it appeals to everyone? Science is something when you can prove something. You have a certain ingredients. There is a certain conditions that need to be applied, and then this is the result. So you can prove it again and again. This is what these yogic techniques can do. They are provable. Masters have proved. Each one of us who have even started on the path, we are already realizing certain things, we are also understanding. So it is, the universal appeal is that it's a daily usable scientific method rather than through a devotional fervor that for an average man, most of us think, oh, devotion fervor is like getting very emotional. So this is something that, it is scientific, and we have to put that into practice. Okay, and he also explains what is sansar. हम संसार मतलब वो this creation, उसको हम संसार बोल रहे हैं ना. He says samsara, literally a flowing with the phenomenal flux, induces man to take the line of least resistance. What does Maya do? That, we try to take the easy way out. If this battle of Kurukshetra that Master talks about, it's a man's aspirations to be one with God, and then the material aspirations. Material aspiration is very easy to go through, right? To not put out energy and really fight the battle is easy. But resisting it, putting that battle, sitting down for meditation is difficult. Easy way out, आज बहुत tired है, आज रहने ते meditate नहीं करते. That's easy way out. But saying, okay, I'm very tired, I will still and do my energization. I will sit and meditate because my guru told me to. It takes a lot of energy. So, but most man, the sansar, the Maya induces us to take the line of least resistance. Whatever is easy to do. Right? So, he says, whoever therefore, this is what says, whoever therefore will be a friend to the world is the enemy of God. A friend says, kya meditate kar rahe ho? Chalo, let's go for a movie. If I say I try to please the friend, then you're that becomes the enemy of, they are the enemy of God, right? To become the friend of God, man must overcome the devils or evils of his own karma or actions that ever urge him to spineless acquiescence in the Mayic delusions of the world. It's our own karma that, it becomes a habit pattern. It's a tendency. We have to fight it. We have to stand against it and say, no, I will do this. I want to find God, and what I need to do, these three things: Kriya Yoga techniques, follow the moral conduct that the yamas and niyamas say, and always saying, Lord, I yearn to know thee. I want to find God. So with that, I think one more class would be needed we'll finish the next class for sure. And autobiographies, we are still with Master here for the next week also. So thank you for joining. So we will meet again next week.